Let's look at creating highlights and shadows by working with layer opacity, modes, styles, and organizing all your layers. I went ahead and did some block coloring, which you can see is pretty crude here, but I've got different layers, and let's look at how to kind of work with these. First, let's figure out what might be a highlight and what might be a shadow. We know that highlights are lighter colors and shadows are darker colors. So in here, we've got some more darker shadow colors. Same with this one. We've got a bunch of rainbow things here and some other colors like that. Say I want to change a certain color now that it's blocked in. It's very easy to do so, and that is why we use blocking to color, so that it's easy to change later. Say you decide you don't want to use brown at all in your color palette whatsoever. So let's command click on the layer. I'm going to get a different color here, and we're going to option delete and fill that in. And say now, oh dang, actually this T needs to be not the same color as the hummingbird. I'm taking the lasso tool, I'm selecting only that area of the layer, and then I'm going to Shift Command J. This is the shortcut key for cutting and copying and pasting. So instead of cut and paste, you can just do Shift Command J, remember to press Shift, and that's going to do it in one go. What's the difference between Shift J and Command J? What's the difference between Command J or Control J and Shift Command J? So this is just going to copy and paste, making a duplicate layer, whereas this is cutting and pasting. Now I have this area free, and I can recolor it. Maybe I want it to be more water-like tea, and there we go. So let's look at the shadows first. Here they are. They're kind of crude, and you can see where I tried using the eraser tool, and I'm just going to kind of blend it in to the base color. You have a base color, and then you have the shadow colors. One thing I like to use is I like to switch between the foreground color box and the background color box, and you can do that by pressing X or pressing this little key thing. So say I need to switch between these two colors. Now I can just do that easily. And we learned that when we did masks, if you remember. So I'm taking that and I'm just kind of tapping it, and I can make my eraser bigger or smaller depending. So now it gives me the shadows a little more blended. It's still a little bit too dark, so what I'm going to do is change the opacity up here. Right now it's at 100, but if I bring it down, that looks a little bit better. It looks more natural. Another thing I can do, say I want a little bit of, I want some shadows in this tea-ish thing. So I can bring that into there. And something like that. Let's work on the modes. Right now it's normal. You can play around with these modes and get some different looking effects. So there might be darker color, things like that. So play around with the layer mode, the opacity. I have another shadow layer here, and I already kind of did some work on it. There. So I kind of just go like overall, and then I like to kind of bring it down a little bit. And this is still pretty 100, so if you can adjust that stuff. Highlights are going to work the same exact way, but instead you're using a lighter color to highlight. So let's create some highlights. Yellow might be my highlight layer, so I'm going to bring that up. This is all the yellow. Okay. Why don't we make a new layer, and we're going to do some lighter just highlights on it. Think about the light source. Where is that coming from? So maybe it's coming here, it's hitting there, and then there might be some highlights going on over here. So you can, blend it and change the opacity if you need to. Okay, something like that, and then let's, it's how bright or dark do I want it. Let's call this highlight, and this is yellow. Now that I have a few highlights and shadows, let's organize these a little bit more so that things don't get really crazy. I'm going to select more than one layer. Shift-click to select both these shadow layers. I'm going to press this button, which is a folder. Create a new group. Whatever was selected, it's now in that group, and I'm going to call this group Shadow. And what's nice about that is that I can hide and show all the shadowy looking areas. And I can do the same thing. Make a group, and I'm going to put this layer into it. See how it's indented? That means it's in it now. And let's call that this is a highlight group. So now I have all my highlights in a group and all my shadows in a group. And if I want to make some highlighting in this the water, say this color is not light enough, so let's make it lighter, and we can go and do some highlighting there. Let's look at blending some colors a little bit. This is the yellow, and it's on top of this green. I'm going to just take the eraser, and I can really kind of blend that together. That way it's not such a hard edge. Now let's look at one thing we didn't talk about, which is layer styles. let's look at this layer, the green of the hummingbird. And I'm going to hide the line layer just so you can see just the color layers for now. And what's nice is that you can see all the work that's going on. Okay. This is our green layer, and if I double click on here, I get the layer style, and I've already done some work to it. Let's click on outer glow. This is giving me a shadow, and you'll notice that there's this kind of shadow color going on. You can change the color here. So say, you know, a shadow should be a darker version of the color that the object is. So the object is green, it might be a greenish. So this is where you can plug in your swatches. Say you want it instead to be this darker red or a brown. Usually shadows are cooler colors. Usually highlights are warmer colors. So that's something to think about as you're creating your highlights and your shadows. You can change the size here. You can change the opacity. So really go in and don't make it garish and like super tacky like that. You know, you can change things according to how you want them. You can change the way that the shadow might look. The spread, how big it's spreading out. Okay, so I kind of like that. You can hide and show that in case you want to delete it later. I don't think it really does too much right now because of the hard black line. We're going to talk about changing line a little later. But for now, those are some techniques on creating some highlights for your work, some shadows, how to group them together, and how to layer things. Using opacity really does something. Opacity is like glazing in watercolor or in acrylics where you're using light layers and you're doing, you know, some light washes. That gives you that nice effect. I think we covered everything here: organizing with groups, layer styles, layer modes, and layer opacity. Check out layer modes, that's really fun. This is set to normal right now, this yellow, but you can really play around here and do lighten and maybe like screen. You know, so each mode is gonna do crazy stuff. So experiment some with that.